Jack, I'm so pleased to have you on the Story Heroes because I truly believe, what you're doing, is amazing for the entrepreneurs and the startup world, right? And your story is unique because I would say age is just a number, but the older you grow, you are more experienced. You see world, from different angle, and you learn so many things, right? Because you have been through those situations. So, Jack, you
Thank
have
you.
been, working with startups and entrepreneurs since quite a long time. You're from America, living as an expat, in Europe, in Switzerland and Spain, and of course, you travel, all across Europe. So, how did you come up with this, purpose that hey, I'm going to help these entrepreneurs, these guys, and I'm going to help them do better? Like, what was the moment? Like, you're like, I'm going to do this,
I don't know if it was a moment. There
right?
have been several.
Uh huh.
I had a long career in several things. Yeah, from magazine into marketing
Yes.
communications and working in the international thing, and then I worked for selling sponsorships to the Olympic Games and things like that. And then the sports marketing movement crashed in 2001, and I jumped out, and I didn't know if I had a parachute or not.
Right.
At that time, I was helping companies sell more effectively and do some leadership stuff too. That was 2001, moving into 2010-ish. I started to realize that I have more fun when I'm working with startups. And I
Right.
would add to that solopreneurs. And then, another decade passing and my age. And I thought, money is not my biggest concern. Um, uh, Fun in life is, and enjoying my career and feeling that I'm really adding value. And when I help startups, I get the feeling from them that I'm valuable. And and then it goes out more and comes back more, and it's one really virtuous cycle.
Right, that's an amazing story. I have come across many of your posts, and you have this narrative where you say that hey, tell your story and make sure that it's a thriller, right? And when you go in any digital marketing masterclass, the first thing that they say is make sure you tell a story. Branding is about telling a story. Pitching your startup is about telling a story. So when you say hey, make it as a thriller, for example, like how do you coach these startups to make sure that when they pitch, because they might have the best tech on planet Earth, but they don't know how to explain it, right? They might have the best design, but they don't know how, because tech geeks, how it is, right? We are working, and we don't really normally go out and speak about the things that we do, all the awesome things that we do. So how do you break that ice when you're meeting those startups, and how's the whole environment like?
Well, I think if all things are equal and you have two equally attractive products, the better story will win.
Right.
I absolutely 100% believe that. I think if one product is a little better and the other one has a really great story, the the product with the great story will win. A terrible product, they will find out before they invest. But really, the story is not going to close a contract for you.
Right.
Although telling a few stories along the sales cycle and the deal cycle can absolutely help re-energize the emotional connection. That is absolutely true. So, but a story is a great start. When you do a deal, when you do, whether it's a sale or an investment opportunity or something like that, you want a champion within that organization. Even if it's a couple, you want one of them to be saying, honey, we got to do this. And if
Right.
they both do, great. And it's the same thing within an organization. You want somebody to, when you leave that office, when you leave that pitch, you want somebody saying, we got to do this. And that happens through an emotional connection. And a story is probably the greatest way to gain that emotional connection. Now, I know I didn't answer your question. Precisely, how do you do that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's another long answer. I have been doing sales training and pitch coaching for 2 decades now. I started, as I mentioned, in magazine editing and writing novels and things like that.
Right.
A decade ago, I came back to writing nonfiction. And last year, before coronavirus, I got back into fiction. Now, I was helping every year from the winter through the spring, I help the Basque region startups with their pitches for a big event. And every year, something new comes along in my mind, and I kind of stick with that as my one big theme. And this year, since I was writing a novel and researching, it's been 40 years since I was doing that. So I'm researching again. And it was like, one thing I was telling them is, you got to tell us a thriller, man. It's not thrilling me. And I realized that there's a parallel between a thriller novel, a blockbuster movie, and a great story and a great pitch.
Right.
So the first thing you need is a character,
Mm-hmm.
and that should be a previous client who was successful doing business with us. And if you don't have your product running yet and sold, and I don't mean invested in, because those are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have users yet,
Right.
then create a fictional thing. And you can, you don't have to hide the fact that our ideal user is a guy named Joe. And you want to personify that as tightly as you can. Male, female, maybe. I say a guy, it could be a woman named Teresa. And if that's a little too much, you certainly want the person receiving the pitch to say, I identify with her.
Mm-hmm.
She's going through the same thing as me. She comes from a similar life. Executive needs to implement something and your product would help, and they're up against it. So you want them to say, I feel what that person's going through. And that person is not you. That person is someone who has you. That's the first thing.
Right. That's a great line of thought, because imagine if if someone who is now starting to pitch, right? They can actually take a lot of thought process from what you said, and can actually build a story behind it. Just imagine a customer persona, for example, or even a previous story, even a real story. It can be my story also. If I'm the founder, I might have faced some issue, and that's the reason why I'm starting this company. Talking about starting a company, Jack, you have been working with also many different accelerators in Europe, right? I've seen your videos, I've seen your posts, and you coach those startups who are in that program, right? Okay, let's be very honest. We all know that all the startups not gonna succeed. Every startup is not gonna become another Airbnb or Uber. And because you are an expert, I'm sure when you are having the mentorship session with them, you sort of get that thing. Oh, this is going to work, or this is not going to work. So are you telling them honestly that I find that you might want to change this model, or you don't?
Oh, I may tell them to change their model.
Right.
I won't tell them I don't think it's going to work.
Okay.
I will do everything I can to help them make it work. And sometimes I identify a really good, I don't know if I want to call them executive,
Okay.
but a entrepreneur.
Hmm.
Sometimes I identify somebody and I'm saying, I don't know if this business model is going to make it, but this girl's going to make it.
Oh,
This
I love
guy's
that.
going to make it. I just tell, there's fire in their eyes, and they're, and I don't know if I consciously say it, but something may say, I think a year from now, he or she's going to be doing something else with the
Amazing.
same fire, with the same passion. Okay. Now, having said that, the first time around with my Basque group, which was three cycles ago, so
Okay.
probably going on 4 years ago, three. Anyway, I've done three now, and they're all from January to July. The
Hmm.
first time around, there was a startup, and he's a little bit introverted, a
Okay. In
little
Spain.
bit not the most expressive person. I thought he had a great product, and they're killing it now.
Mm-hmm.
They're killing it now. And when he pitched on the final day, he was himself, but he had his ideas clear.
Okay.
And 6 months of coaching, a workshop, 4 months of coaching, another workshop, you're ready to pitch. And he had his ideas clear. He was confident. He wasn't the most expressive, but
Okay.
he was confident and he had enough vocal variety, which is important in your delivery. I'm about content, but delivery too. And a
Yes.
year later, he was the guest to come onto the stage to say, "Wow, you just got €1 million
Oh, wow.
in invest." Yeah, and your clients,
Wow.
you have clients, traction, and investment. And then afterwards, he and I did a little interview afterwards, and someone was videoing us. And I said, "What did you get out of working with me?" And what he said is, through working on my pitch with you, this is his quote in Spanish, but we understood what customers were willing to pay us for, just like
Wow.
that. And I was really floored because
Wow.
it wasn't just your pitch, your story. It was really, gee, 6 months earlier, it was, and I won't say his name, but you can, Chema, Chema, where is the value here? Build it around the value, the value, the value, the value. And he nailed it. He absolutely nailed it. So
Right. That's a great story, Jack. So you have been working with a lot of startups and entrepreneurs, especially in the European region, right? And now we have this year where we have COVID and loads of things, they have stopped, they were rescheduled, postponed, or let's say canceled, for example. So how do you see the startup ecosystem, bouncing back, let's say in 21? Like, what is your prediction? Like, how do you see it? Are you seeing the same amount of accelerators coming back up, doing their thing again, or it will take time to be normalized?
two groups I'm working with will have going into 21 cycle. The one group, January to June,
Hmm.
July actually, but and another group, they here in Switzerland, they have fewer startups coming into their programs this year, which I think is an indicator that everything's cooled down a little bit. I mean, the economy is cooling down. What I think will happen though, late 21, is we will see more startups. I found this in 2001 with the internet burst. So, like around 2003, there were a lot of startups. And then in 2008, with Lehman Brothers and that whole fiasco, I also found that 2010 there were a lot of startups.
Right.
And people can't get work, and necessity is the mother of invention. People get more creative, strategically creative. I have to, I have to start a fire. I have to.
Yes.
Wow, I guess it's up to me to cut down the trees. And oh, you got to do that early to let them dry. But I've got to, build my house myself. I've got to start a fire. I've got to hunt and harvest myself. So people were creating harvesters. And wait, I mean, if you follow me, I believe that I believe that a year from now, when the economy will be back, but people will feel as though I can't trust. And I love corporations, don't get me wrong, but people's social contract with them will once again be broken in their hearts. And they're going to say, hey, I just got a job offer. I don't want to go back, which is what happened to me in 2001. In 2003, I had a job offer, but I was successfully consulting. And I was like, no, no. And I believe that same cycle is going to happen.
Right. That's very interesting, and I also share the same thought with you. When I was watching, this movie, that two guys, they went to Google as interns, and they are, in their early 40s, and in the end, in Google, they win the internship because they are good at sales, right? So that shows how important selling is, or sales is, right? And you have this special model that you call SCORE, or score, sales model. How did you come up with this model? Please tell us more about it.
The score selling method, I created that 2003, 2004. I got first client in 2004. At that time, I was a partnership with another guy who we separated amicably. He's back as a corporate executive. He just felt better at that. And in 2005, we landed our first big client,
Right.
and and we built it around the five key stages of a sale. And from 2005 to today, I've only perfected it. I honestly believe that the five key stages of a sale: SCORE, score, your customer, your prospective customer needs to go through these 5 steps. So you being customer focused need to pull them, not push them.
Right.
You don't push anybody through your sale,
Hmm.
but do pull them through their purchase. And Score is a model of selling for doing that. And if one feels that pushing and pulling, it's just rhetoric, it's not. There's a lot of psychology of persuasion behind it. And I have a persuasion paradox webinar coming up in January. I invite the listeners to follow me and find out when that is, because by asking great questions, we have to talk and a little, and we have to get the customer talking. How do you do that? With great questions. And SCORE are the 5 stages of a sale that you're going to be planting a seed and asking a question and getting the customer talking through scope, challenges, their challenges, not you're challenging them. Although you can say, really, would you really do it that way? So scope, challenges, outcomes, resistance, which is a very human dynamic,
Yes.
and execution.
Right.
And we have to pull the customer through their resistance. Now, this is linear in concept, but not linear in execution. You may have to go back or even jump forward, but you'll just be aware of what the customer is going through and what your next move should be. That is, for me, the art and tactical skill of selling.
Right. So basically, these are the 5 stages, right, where your customer could be, and you have to overcome the resistance and then execute the sale, right?
Correct. And you need to get them. Yeah. And now the resistance could happen early.
Yes.
It always happens near the end, either a little bit or a lot. And in my program, I spend a lot of time on resistance, even though in your implementation of the sales visit in the conversation, you might only be using it for very short times and one question and move on. But it is so tactically important that I spend more time on that. Again, a great salesperson or one who persuades well has 2 things. I feel is the tactical skill to really do the right thing,
Right.
and the perception of, should I do that now? What's the customer going through? Reading the signals. And so the R is so powerful, but you only use it now and then when you sense the customer is in that space.
Right. Understand. Jack, we are going through this amazing, shift in how we do business, right? So we have startups, we have the corporations, right, and then we have solo, entrepreneurs and single, let's say, unit bodies, right? But when I was in my 90s, I used to have these shops around me where where we know that this shop is like 100 years old. My father knew their father, they knew my grandfather, and it was like a legacy, right? Right. And with legacy, you build trust, right? Trust across generations, right? So in today's world where we have this startup, and then okay, you fail fast, it's okay, shut the shop, it's okay, raise money, it didn't work out, it's okay, next. How do you build trust in such I will call it rapidly random environment?
Very good question. And trust is something that's been in my vocabulary and heart and mind in the ever since I created Score, ever since I went out on my own, and I have to sell myself too.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some major sales corporations, out there, and I have to win business too.
Yes. Yes.
And trust is your biggest currency in a
Mm.
deal. You can have the euro, the pound, the Swiss franc, the dollar, whatever currency you're dealing in, and your biggest currency is trust. No
Amazing
trust,
thought. Yeah.
no deal.
Amazing thought.
And how do you build it? Okay, I've just got a startup. This isn't my grandfather's and my father's in my business. This is mine, and I started it 8 months ago. And I insist that it's asking great questions and listening. Anyone who says you should know their business when you go in the first time, I laugh. And I'm going to, yeah, right. They're going to put their problems on their website. They're going to be at a corporate event speaking and they're going to say, oh, my biggest problem. You should know as much as you can, but absolutely do not obsess on, when you ask a question and the customer says, it doesn't quite work that way here. Don't get defensive. Don't get insecure. Smile and go, tell me, how does it work? It's logical that I don't know everything happening here. It's totally logical.
Right.
But the orthopedic surgeon doesn't know what's happening with your knee when you go in and go, I have a bad knee. And
Hmm.
he or she starts asking questions. You don't go, what a stupid orthopedic surgeon. He doesn't know my problem. I mean, you didn't put it on your website. Okay. And does it hurt in the morning or the evening? Are you a runner? You're a swimmer and it's acute. After swimming or when you wake up in the morning? They ask questions specific to their expertise and your body. Now, that's what you need to do as a salesperson. Ask great questions that is specific to your expertise and their potential problems today, their potential problems tomorrow. Where will that? And if you're really good at asking questions and listening, they'll start to trust you. They'll start to trust you. If you go in and say, look how good I am, I'm great, everybody loves us, they're not going to trust you. They're not going to trust you. Save that for the end when they want to get to know you because you have dug down deep into their hearts and minds and problems and opportunities. And now they say, oh my God, this person knows us. They know what we're up against. God, I want to know a little about him.
Yeah.
That's human nature. If you go in and show off how good you are, they're like, yeah, right away, they're like, I don't want to listen to this. And at the end, if you do it right, they're dying to learn about you.
I think that is
That's
very,
trust.
very important, right? That how how you build trust. And thank you very much for this amazing explanation. The reason why I asked you this question because I knew that trust is something that is very, very important, and it's a part of your dynamics and ecosystem. Because I had the pleasure of meeting you last year when we were unmasked, right? And I knew that trust is something that is very, very important to you. So Jack, we come to the last question, and it is not the least very important question. It is very difficult to define an entrepreneur or entrepreneurship, right? A lot of people call entrepreneurs as businessmen. When I was young, when I started, the word was young businessman, and then it became small you know company, then it became a startup, and then the words keep on changing, right? So according to you, what exactly is the entrepreneur and the entrepreneurial spirit?
I believe many people have an entrepreneurial spirit and they're not entrepreneurs. They call themselves entrepreneurs. When I see that, I shrug my shoulders and say, God bless them.
Hmm.
I believe there are many solopreneurs, and that has a similar spirit. Maybe preneur is what I'm looking at. I don't know. But when you're working alone and you're consulting, you're not an entrepreneur. But you are brave, you are courageous. You may have no other choice but saying, okay, I'm going to do that. That's brave. Entrepreneur is someone who has a team and grows it. It doesn't have to be IT, it doesn't have to be technology, but growing something, and perhaps with investment or perhaps just growing it organically. That to me is an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur and solopreneur have very similar things. And what is it? I think I said the word already. It's courage. And it takes courage to go into business for
Right.
yourself. And so
Yes.
your business success depends on your sales success. And a successful solopreneur or entrepreneur, if they absolutely hate selling, and you know what, when you have the tactical skills, it not only gets more productive, it gets more fun. If you don't have the tactical skills, it's scary. And when you start mastering the skills, you start saying, hey, I actually like this. But a solopreneur or an entrepreneur who is going to be successful has to sell.
Right.
And if he or selling, then they have to get a salesperson. They have to find a distribution channel. They have to do something to make sure that that gets sold, because the only definition of success is if you're selling. You can get investment,
Of
and
course.
you're under more pressure now because the investors want you to start selling to a
Yes.
marketplace, not someone who's going to use it as opposed to invest in you. So a great entrepreneur is courageous, and they're always thinking, where's my next deal coming from? How am I going to scale it? And or how am I just going to grow my business? And that takes sales. They're always looking on the horizon for not only new clients, but new tweaks to their product that's going to grow it.
Right. That's incredible thought, because you have actually started, from the entrepreneurial spirit, and you actually show the difference between the spirit and being an entrepreneur, yourself. It takes a lot of courage. You have to be brave, right? And the most important thing, yes, you can raise as much money as you can, that's fine, but you have to sell and create more value, the profits, right? And then, and create more jobs, I would say, for other people. I always thought entrepreneurship, is about, the people. It's the art that is, binding with, with the people, and they believe in you, even if you're doing something that is so crazy, doesn't make sense on the paper maybe at times, but people believe in you, and they're like, man, we are with you, let's do this. So I think
Yeah, that's a love
that's,
affair. That's a love
yeah.
affair.
Exactly.
I love this person. I love their product. I love the way I believe they're going to take care of me. And that's trust too. Trust and love. Somebody had a schematic with human emotion and human qualities. Trust, love, and acceptance at different, because love is a quality, and trust, love, and acceptance were contiguous to each other. Meaning, and acceptance for me is the deal. We accept your deal. Trust, so trust, love, and acceptance. And it's a very human, primal, emotional, and mental. It's emotional and mental. The two go together. It's a dynamic. So A, you need to be courageous. B, you need to be out there building trust.
Right. So Jack, we talked about, so many things, business, and, all those, topics. I will end this podcast at a very personal, note, and even a, I would say, a personal question. So how it is being an expat, American expat, living in Europe, how it has been for you? Is it good or bad? Like, what's the experience like?
It's funny. I sometimes wake up and say I am the luckiest person in the world. I don't like superlatives, but I'm a very lucky person. But it hasn't been easy.
Okay.
I moved to Spain when I was 22 years old. 21, 22 years old. I had fallen in love, and I went and I moved in
Right.
with a woman, and the first 6 months were stressful because you arrive and it's, hey baby, we're finally together, and it's long term, it
Yeah.
seems, and then you start going out and socializing and looking for work, and there was just something that, wow, this is really different. Do I fit in? Do I belong here? I had
Right.
people tell me, what are you doing here? In a bad moment, like, what are you doing here? I was like, oh. And you probably as an expat have felt that too, and then you
Yes.
you get used to it.
Yes.
Then decade or so later, I'm in Switzerland. I speak Spanish fluently now.
Right.
I don't speak German fluently. And 2001, I moved back from London. My family was living here, and German is a very difficult language. And I was at an age where learning languages isn't as easy. And where's my next dollar, euro, Swiss franc coming from? And I wasn't speaking the local language. It has been stressful and insecure at times. I've gotten over it. And I honestly believe, and this is a great story too, not my story specifically, but you need struggle to make the story interesting and lovable. My happy ending, and I'm a long way from the end, I hope, is things worked out, things are good, and with all the insecurity that I felt in Spain and then in Switzerland, and then I started traveling a lot, and whenever, like, oh, do I belong here? And now it's like, people used to say, oh, expat, citizen of the world, but you don't feel you belong anywhere. And to that, today, uh, at my age, maybe it's just an age thing, but to that I say bullshit. I belong anywhere I want to be. I don't say that with arrogance, but I'm good. I'm good. I'm walking into a bar in a strange country. I'm not concerned that maybe it's kind of like I'm different. I got to deal with that. And so now, so I have more than half my life outside of my home country and in 3 countries as a resident. I'm good. I can talk to anybody. I'll approach anybody with love and, not arrogance, but with confidence, I think. So being an expat has helped me grow tremendously. And I actually tell people, if you've got the courage to do it, do it.
No, absolutely. I think being an expat also helped me grow. I would say tremendously. Like you said, and thank you very much, Jack, for sharing your thoughts with us and being so honest and so pure, like as you are. With your answers, it has been a pleasure, hosting you on this podcast. And I would end this with a word that I know from Spanish. Gracias, Jack.
De nada, hombre. De nada, Amar. Always a pleasure. I think we fell in a bromance, if I may. Love is one of my big words and concepts. I think you and I in Gdansk a little over a year ago.
Yes.
I think we fell in entrepreneurial, executive, expat love because I loved what you do too. I really love what you do. And when this COVID thing is over, I have a lot of confidence in you and your business too.
Right.
So thank you for being here. Thank you.
Right, Jack. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Thank you.